Welcome to the van build, and today is day 18. Maybe. I'm not completely sure. It's weirdly complicated, but today I'm going to be fixing up some of the small physical things that got messed up or never got completed, or just doing some small new tasks in the build. But most importantly, just talking openly and honestly about what this experience has been like, and answering some of the common questions I've been asking and seeing over and over in the comments referring to this van build. So the first thing I'm going to fix in the van today is these supports I had to take out when I ripped out my first DIY floor to install my VanLife Tech heated floors. It raised my original floor up just a little bit, so I'm actually not able to just shimmy these back into place, but I have to cut them all down and refit them. And so while I do that, I'm going to answer the most burning question lately, which is, why is the build not done? Why am I not always building constantly? And I actually wanted to make this video in part to finally be able to fully answer that specific question, because honestly, the internet has been really nasty to me lately about how I'm not building fast enough. I've had this van for 9 months now, if I'm being honest, and no, that does not sound great. No, that was not my original time frame. It's not what I wanted either. But the first thing I want to say is, I am not just van building. I am making a full educational and entertaining video series while building. By myself, I am studying, scripting, revising, and connecting with experts and sponsors, planning, then executing, filming while simultaneously building a house in a box in awful weather, then editing, promoting, posting, getting sponsors, trying to make a living income, and then doing it all over. And when I am filming and building, I'm wondering, does my stomach look fat in this shot? Oh, did I just run out of storage on my phone to film again? I need to take a break to get more storage. All these things go on. And even when I'm just putting one support in, I'm doing it from 3 different angles so the video comes out better and more interesting, even if it takes a crazy amount of time. I turn on the camera, I walk back to the van, take a piece out, fake putting it back in, walk back to the camera, change the angle, pull it out, put it back in, walk back, and turn off the camera. And right now I have so many fully recorded videos I am so excited to share, and I just need to edit or get approved by sponsors, or my electrical series can't be posted until mid-August because the system is under NDA until then. But also, I started communicating with my sponsor for the solar panels in March, and we didn't have it sorted for 4 months. These things just take a lot more time than these people who are commenting for me to build faster maybe realize. And when living in Vegas, add on to that it's 110 degrees and I can't even think straight, and I keep losing my vision and have to put my phone in my fridge every 20 minutes because it overheats and stops working. And whenever I try to explain these things, I know it just kind of sounds like I'm complaining, so I know I can't win. But it's been asked a lot and I wanted to address it. And I wouldn't recommend living in a van while building it out to anybody. It is extremely difficult, lesson learned. But the build since I got back to my parents' driveway has been going so well. The solar panels are already in, the insulation is out and ready to be put in next, and I feel like I can breathe again. Like, building isn't so overwhelming that it feels like I'm running a marathon each time. It feels like a breath of fresh air being able to go outside in the morning to an empty van and just immediately start building. I am like a renewed woman. There is just a lot of pieces in this puzzle, is what I'm trying to say, and there's a lot of pieces in everybody's puzzle. So if you're considering building a van, the rest of your life isn't on pause because of that. You still have a lot of other things to juggle. I had to take a break for some hospital visits, then I had to take a break to be able to afford those hospital visits. And in my last van, I was also having a full-time job while building. So that's just all part of the experience and things you have to account for when thinking about how long your build's going to take. I don't know anyone who has built their van in the allotted time frame they thought they'd build their van in. This leads us to the time of day where I actually have to show the van's progress to the client I'm making the van for so that she can see how it's going and pass her judgment. And she is very picky and hates pretty much everything. So this will be a very tough test to pass. Meet Betty, and she will eventually be living with me in this van, and she is not the most excited about that, but it has shaped a lot of the choices I have been making in this van build. The layout, the heating and cooling systems, the windows in the back I got because she loves to sit in sunlight. And that brings us right into the sponsor of today's video, Waggle, a pet monitoring system for van lifers to be able to make sure their pets are safe in their vehicles at all time from anywhere. So I can get real-time alerts on my phone to know that if I leave her in the van, she is in a safe temperature at all times. It's a peel and stick controller and does not work off Wi-Fi, but actually a Verizon network. It'll alert me if my vehicle's battery system dies, and it all goes straight to my phone from a text, and there's an app as well. They also offer an upgrade to a Waggle cam so I can be able to watch her off the camera, but I actually already bought blink cameras, which I'll be installing soon. So I decided to stick with just the basic temperature monitor. But Betty is the world to me, so I just want to make sure she is safe, and nothing else in the van build matters more. And she's a diva, so she expects the best at all times. If you want to check out the Waggle, I will leave the link in the description, and until July 7th, if you use code TORI70, you can get a full 70% off. Oh, sweetie. It's okay. Yeah? She's grumpy. This is Betty's very first time in the new van, and this is gonna be your home. Are you excited? She's not excited at all. But I'm hoping to try to make baby steps, get her used to it, have little trips, so it's not just all at once out of nowhere. And she hates that. So. Next, we're installing the Sonnet 1 Pro dashcam from Vantrue, and I'm not sure how I feel about it yet, but I do know that I will greatly appreciate the sense of security on my van, especially with all that has happened recently. Having the break-in, being surrounded by cops, all those different things, this will get a full recording of that, which will help me feel like if anything does happen, not only will it help with insurance, but just peace of mind. I wanted to get this specifically along with my Blink surveillance cameras because this will be detailed enough to read license plates and have collision detection, as well as 24/7 parking monitoring and actually be meant for this specific job. So after this, I attempt to fix my broken back door, and unfortunately fail miserably. I will have to take this into a shop to get it fixed, but just let her have her moment for now. Before that, I was rolling on the end of the sound deadener I applied months ago. This was something that I stopped doing because I was just so unsure of myself since a million people were saying a million things to me in a million directions about how much to install, and I just wanted to make sure I was doing what I wanted to do. And I'm glad I stopped because I actually decided to not apply sound deadening to the ceiling at all, since I will be putting Frost King all across the top as a radiant heat barrier, which I will fully go over in my installation video. But yeah, the sound deadening was a tricky one for me. Everyone thinks they know everything about van building, literally everyone. Quote-unquote professional van builders will swear by their own methods and trash others. People will say things that are not true with complete confidence, and there's no school for this. There's no certification, no true rule book, and yes, 1,000,005 people have published guides about how to build a van. But even then, those people will dispute things. I read a van build book in a Barnes & Noble the other day that I know had incorrect information in it, and there's literally no one to check most of those people. Which actually brings me to another point I want to make in this video, which is about things I learned while living out west. I learned that a lot of van lifers who share things online are purposeful, pathological liars. Some will say they built their whole van when they didn't build any of it. Some are telling small little white lies about bits and pieces where they got help. I have had so many people lie to me over the past few months, it's actually kind of crazy, to the point where I just didn't believe anything anyone said. I had someone tell me they designed their van and offer to help me do mine, and I was going to actually pay them, and then I watched a van tour of their van with someone else, and ends up they had an interior designer the whole time. I was literally going to pay them based on work they didn't even do. Then they told someone else an item on their van was their own design when that was very easily proven wrong because it was from a company. I've heard about people making videos faking having a van breakdown and filming that fake content in front of a lot of other people. I found someone who owns a van building company start a second company teaching people how to go from broke to millionaire, just as he did, he claims, but I know for a fact he's a trust fund kid whose parents have funded every van project he ever started. So just don't compare yourself or your building or your struggles in van life to the easily fabricated lies on the internet. But again, I digress. Moving on to the next question. Do I see myself doing van life for a long time? So when I started this van build, the answer was yes, absolutely, passionately, had no end in sight. And then at the beginning of this year, for the first time, I thought to myself, I could see myself getting a house, and it was weird. The first time I had ever felt that in my whole life. I knew even then if I did have a house, though, I wouldn't sell the van and I would keep it for weekend adventures. But yeah, as of right now, I'm back to believing I may just live in a van forever. Maybe eventually a sailboat, maybe even do van life in Europe or backpack Europe or work on a cruise ship, or I don't know. I guess what I learned about myself is that I will be nomadic as long as I am single, and as long as I am nomadic, it will be very hard to be anything but single, as I think the nomadic lifestyle is just not optimal for people who are looking for relationships. Which leads to another common question. Why do I choose to be single? Which I love that y'all assume I choose to be single, and all the comments tend to word it that way, which is just, it's very sweet and I appreciate it. It makes me laugh. It's just that van life adds a whole new difficult layer to a relationship, especially a new starting relationship, which is even worse in my opinion if the other person isn't also living nomadically. If they aren't living nomadically, they tend to either be judgy up front or be okay with the whole van life thing, but then continually ask you when you plan on stopping and selling your van. They'll fall for you because of your adventurous lifestyle, but then ask you to change. And I don't know. Right now, I don't have time to think about any of that because I have a van build and I am very happily doing it on my own right now. These are some of the sketches that I've come up with so far with what I want the van to look like. There's a little bit of commitment issues with the design, but there's also, I just have so many ideas and my creativity kind of is flowing in some places nonstop and then other places just there's nothing. For example, my partition door, I want to either do as the Harry Potter mirror or as the doors of Durin from Lord of the Rings. And I wanted Sandy Vans to do it, but they didn't have time to schedule me in to do it when I was out there. So now I'm like, okay, can I do this on my own? How do I do that? How do I make this vision come to life? And I'm not sure if I'll be able to do that. And that's another thing is when your desired outcome doesn't match your skill level. But I know someone asked me what theme I kind of have in mind for this one. And it originally started out being huge fantasy, you know, Star Wars, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings really being the focal point, me wanting to make it like green and mossy and just fantasy with swords. And then recently I've gotten really into Bridgerton, and then I kind of loved the idea of making it classy, kind of like a Paris with a pink kind of vibe. And I also, there's just so many different versions of yourself, and I feel like a van, when someone walks into a van, you can tell who they are. And it's incredible and it's so cool. And so I'm trying to portray myself into my designs in a way. And luckily, we're not there yet. But when I do put the ceiling in, I need to know what color I'll be painting it beforehand. So in a way, just like with everything else in the van build, I need to know 20 steps ahead in order to do the next steps. So the ceiling will be, I'll be putting in the solar panels, then I'll be putting in the pre-wiring, then the insulation. Then in one full video, I'll do the walls, the floor, and the ceiling. So that's not that far away. Hopefully, cross your fingers that everything goes well. So yeah, so the layout's starting to really become part of the van build, which is exciting. And I know with my first van build, the sketch is not how it ended up looking at all. So if these things change, so be it. Yeah, but overall the layout's going to be pretty much the same as my last van, except the partition door is a really big deal to me. I have back windows this time. I would like an oven to be able to cook in. I have the heater now. I have the air conditioner. I have the electrical back here instead of being in the bench. I'm kind of confused about where I want to fit the fridge because I absolutely want a freezer this time. And so there are still some things that are being figured out, but overall the layout's going to be pretty much the same. I know I want to also close the cabinets that were up here because I think it kind of just made it look messy, but I want to have like an open slot for books, I think, because I like seeing books. I'll also have to account for space for my cat, for Betty, so her litter box, her own little, you know, space for her to hide away in, those kind of things all go into the big picture as well. Yeah, so that's what I have for layout so far. There's definitely a lot of elements and planning that go into a van build, but I hope this video showed you some of mine, as well as showed that sometimes when you're watching van build videos, there's also a lot of little things that go into builds that aren't always shown but can still be very time consuming. My new goal for myself is to finish this van build before the last week of September, and I've already locked in travel plans for after that, so here's a toast to setting crazy goals and to the next 3 months putting my head down and taking building very seriously. Wish me luck.